Say hey everybody and welcome back to another edition of the Leadoff on SorareMLB. I'm Alex Hooper, catching up on all of the action in Major League Baseball from Wednesday, June 28th, and how it will impact your Sorare gallery. Today we are going to recap a couple of things that happened in baseball. Yes, one thing in particular. We're going to also take a look at some trade philosophy. That's a question we've been getting asked quite a bit. And then I'm going to look at a couple players that people in the comments have wanted me to specifically look at. So we'll do that. Of course, before we get into it, got to plug the Patreon, patreon.com/SorareFP. $5 for the weekly projections, $10 for weekly projections, yearly projections, the Discord, and that upcoming app, of course. And don't forget, we are giving away that Rich Hill limited card. If you know how to enter, do it now. If you don't, stay tuned till the end of the video, of course. All right, let's dive into it. And yes, the big story is Domingo Germán's perfect game against the A's. Of course, not a ton of strikeouts in that perfect game, only about a 54-point outing, despite not allowing a hit or a walk or an error. So I've often used the case of the perfect game as, why starting pitchers aren't as important as hitters, and this was exactly why. You see him go out and do something historic, and then Domingo Germán might be the, second or third highest scoring pitcher on this game week slate. So as far as Germán in particular, his numbers are pretty middling, all about 50th percentile, 29th percentile X-slug, 29th percentile barrel rate. I don't have any interest in him, and what better time to sell than after a perfect game? $5 for the limited, about $15 for the rare. I'm going to go ahead and use this opportunity to get off of Domingo Germán. He hasn't been very good. He ran into a nice A's team, and he ran into a rough A's team and had a nice night. That's putting it lightly. But yeah, this is an opportunity to sell. I don't think much of Domingo Germán as a pitcher or a person, honestly. And I would use this opportunity to sell. Moving on, just touching on the Cincinnati Reds 11-7 win over the Baltimore Orioles. The story here, Will Benson at the tail end of that lineup, 3 for 5 with a double and a triple. His OPS is up to 848 in a limited role. Benson's always had a power stroke as a prospect. It kind of took him a while to get acclimated to each level that he hit, but that xWOBA is well above league average in his last 50 plate appearances. Again, limited sample size. He is a part-time player. He platoons against left-handed pitchers, so he's only hitting against right-handed pitchers. $4 for the limited, $18 for the rare. It's a prospective buy, but I'm not saying to rush out and buy Will Benson. If you have him, he's not a bad piece if the Reds are facing all righties in a week. Moving on to a hazy, smoky Pittsburgh. The Pirates top the Padres 7-1, but Blake Snell absolutely dealing in this one. 6 innings pitched in the loss, 10 strikeouts, and 2 earned runs. He does pick up the loss in this one, but he looks for real. It's been a while. Talked about him before. I'm starting to get on board. $14 for the limited, $44 for the rare. It's a light buy for me. It's a great price for a guy who can put up big numbers in a game like this. Like, honestly, the 10 strikeouts and 2 earned over 6 is probably putting him close to Domingo Germán's perfect game in terms of scoring. So yeah, I really like Blake Snell here. And the Astros top the Cardinals 10-7. Christian Javier, though, he might be cooked. 22nd percentile X-slug, 24th percentile barrel rate, 39th percentile xERA and xWOBA. $11 for his limited, $74 for his rare. He has just not looked good. He doesn't have overpowering stuff. And I'm definitely selling that rare at the price. If you can get $74 for a Christian Javier rare right now, you can definitely do better with that money. I'm saying sell. And I wanted to show you highlights from the Guardians 14-1 win over the Royals, but unfortunately MLB posted Tuesday's game instead of Wednesday's game on the highlights, so I can't really show you that. But Jose Ramirez, 2 for 3 with a grand slam, 5 RBIs. I talked about him earlier in the week as a big buy for me. He is obviously still that. His price is very low for the way that he projects and the damage he can do. So if you don't have him and you need an elite bat, he's about as cheap as you can get for, the cream of the crop. Also, Bo Naylor with his first home run. He's got a couple of cards out on the market, $5 to $10 for a limited, but I'm not running out to buy a catcher at any point, really. If I win him, I'd be happy to have his rookie card as a Guardians fan, but other than that, I'm not really worried about it. All right, so let's dive into this question from Mean Nick Dean. It's a great name, sounds like a wrestler. And we got some others kind of asking the same question, but Nick's question was, can you provide some insight on trade philosophy on Sorare? Seems like trading is one of the easier ways to acquire cards that you want. So this is interesting because Sorare recently dropped the ability to ban trades, or basically say, like, you can send me ETH for this card, or you can not send me anything at all because I don't want to deal with your trade requests. Generally, the trade requests that you see on Sorare are asinine, and while if you put together a nice trade, that might be easier for some people, especially in the case of them having duplicate cards, but generally it's a really easy way to piss people off if you're sending bad trades. So let's look at a couple of trades that I've been sent, and I will show you some of those bad ones because I get a lot. All right, so let's take a look here. I don't mean to put anyone on blast. If I could obscure the names here, I would. This is not meant to be a personal attack on anyone. If any of these people are watching, I hope they understand why I'm mentioning some of the trades that they've sent me and saying why I don't like them. Except in the case of an obvious scam, which has happened to me before on the soccer side. Someone sent me a deal that slipped in an extra zero, and I was driving, and I accepted the trade for basically 1/10 of what I had got listed as. So if anyone does that, I will obviously put you on blast, and you can hopefully get banned from the platform or whatever. But I mean, it was on me. It was my fault. But anyway, all right. So let's look at some trades here. I have my Patrick Sandoval super rare reward listed for about 0.06, just a little bit above the last sale. There you go, 0.06 right there. So Carlos sends me the Adam Ottavino super rare. This is not an egregious trade. This is not one that I'm like, you're out of your mind. Similar price, if you look, just a little less, which that is one thing with trades. If you are going to send a trade for a card, the value should be about 110 to 115% more. You can send equal value trades, but something like this where, one, it's a less valuable position. I don't need a relief pitcher. But if you're going to send me something where Sandoval, like, he went for 0.053 last, and this guy has sniffed that once, then that's a bad trade, and you shouldn't even send it. Like, there's no reason to send it. Ottavino is a decent piece, but he's also older, and I didn't have any interest in it. So here are a couple of bad trades if you're me. So I have a Kyle Finnegan super rare listed. Generally, do not send me, especially a 1-for-1 swap. So let's look at the prices here. Let's say 0.04 to 0.038. This Eduardo Rodriguez isn't even close. Like, this is an asinine trade. This is bad. It's 67% value for a lower scarcity. That's the one thing that I will say. Like, if you're going to send me a lower scarcity, the tier of player must be higher than the tier that I am sending you. So Kyle Finnegan, I think, is like a tier 4 card, maybe a tier 5, and Eduardo Rodriguez is probably a 3 or a 4. So it does check that box, but like, why would I be trying to, if I'm dabbling in super rares, why would I be trying to sell down? I can show you a good example of this if I go back far enough. But basically, like, for a Kyle Finnegan, I would accept like I don't know, like a Dylan Cease rare or something like that if I wanted to really trade you. Like, I'm selling a card because I want Ethereum generally. That's why I've listed it. If I wanted to trade, I would find a trade and make the trade. So if you're going to just send me a mid-tier player in a lower scarcity, I don't have any interest. Okay, I said this was a bad trade. I don't know that this is a bad trade. Spencer Steer has been smacking the ball, and his price is, way up here, 0.244. So if you look at the total here, 0.125. All right, we're looking at like 0.155, zero point 0.2. So realistically, this is not a bad trade, but this is what I call a junk trade. If you have to send me 3 players to meet the value of the player I'm trying to sell, the players you're sending me are probably not good. And that's the case here. Like Ahmed Rosario has his moments, but I'm a little biased because I'm a Guardians fan. He doesn't interest me. I don't think I've said on the show, I don't think he's gonna hang around long. Cole Sands, I don't even know who he is. I think he's a relief pitcher. And then Giovanni Gallegos is a setup man. He's decent, but like I don't have any need for him. Also take into account this is the 1 mint of his rookie card. And while I know that doesn't completely move the needle, like don't send me something undervalue on that. It doesn't make sense. So these are examples of trades not to send to people. Trades where you have to send a bunch of players to make up the value of one. Generally, those players aren't going to be good. Lower scarcity cards that aren't nearly as worthwhile as the upper scarcity. Let me rephrase that. Lower scarcity cards that are kind of meh for a meh card. If you're going to send me a trade for that card, at least, put it on the same plane. It's just Eduardo Rodriguez is hurt for one, and it doesn't move the needle. It just doesn't make sense. Here's a good trade. This is the kind of trade that I look for. It's not really a trade, it's a sale. Nogchamp really wanted Jurickson Profar. He sent me a number of trade offers, and eventually I bit. Trades like this one are fine, where you send a player and ETH, but the value just didn't make sense to me here. I was looking for at least 0.065 for Profar. Eventually, just went for the 0.06. It was like a $9 difference. But this wasn't even sniffing that value, so I wasn't interested. Here's some examples of trades that actually do make some amount of sense. Player for ETH and players to make up the value. But these players are decent. Luzardo is decent. Bautista, even though he has a lower scarcity, he's an elite level player at his position. So if you're going to send me a lower scarcity, this is what I'm looking for. Someone who I'm going to play. Someone who's going to sneak into those lineups. Not if I'm trading my Kyle Finnegan super rare, who does factor into some of my super rare lineups, I don't want someone who might factor into my rare lineups. I need somebody who does factor into my rare lineups, and this would be the case at the limited level. If I'm going to give up my Ozzy Albies here, and I'm going to get a limited, I want to know that I'm going to play that limited. That said, I wouldn't have accepted this trade because the value just wasn't worth what Ozzy Albies is worth to me. It might have made sense in terms of sales, but Ozzy Albies is one of my important players in my Braves stack, so I didn't really want to part with him. So I kind of praised Nogchamp before, but this is an example of a bad trade. Like, this is all junk to make up for what is not enough ETH. I mean, Marquez is fine. Haniger is fine when he doesn't have a broken hand. Hedges is horrible. Herget doesn't do anything. Walsh is in the minors. And Wood is kind of whatever. Like, just don't send these trades. Here's another example. Just a garbage trade. Just don't send me all of these. Again, I'm showing you these examples as what not to do. All right, on my screen currently are some examples of 1 good trade and 2 trades that, frankly, Dodo should be ashamed of, and I am going to put him on blast. So the top one here, this person apparently wanted Jake Woodford. I don't know why. I think he moved to the bullpen, whatever. And he's going to send me a Trevor Stephan. The values are, the value here is actually just enough better, kind of in that 115% range on Stephan to Woodford. Stephan has a good role. I know I'm going to use him at some point, and I have used him, whereas I wasn't using Woodford. If you want a player, send a decent player in return. A decent player that makes sense for the other person. You don't have to know their gallery, but like Stephan is a decent card. Just send a decent card if you want a card for a specific reason. Now, here's something asinine from Dodo. He's been doing this to everybody, and frankly, he should be embarrassed because his name is Trade Equals Ban, and then he goes to everybody and wants to trade his new card for their old card because he wants a higher level card. It's just embarrassing. I don't know what else to say. I don't know why you would do this and have this in your handle. Just I don't know. I I'm not gonna like fully put him on blast or anything. It's just it's silly. Here's another example of a good trade from Crypto Colorado. Spencer Steer is a super rare. Taylor Ward is a decent rare. You want to send me an elite rare, even if he's hurt. Like, honestly, I thought about this trade. I would love to have a Yordan Alvarez rare. That would be fantastic. I didn't want to part with my Spencer Steer, probably because he's the 1-min. And then Taylor Ward was I think this is what actually caused me to not do it is if Ward wasn't in this trade, I think I would have considered it, but I don't have enough super rares to facilitate an all-star and pro team if I get rid of Spencer Steer and someone goes on the IL. So this was kind of a bodies issue, but this is a good example of a trade. He is trading an elite card for a higher scarcity good card and another good card at the rare level. This is a solid trade, just it didn't make sense for me at the time, but I was very interested. Okay, I want to find this one last one. Here you go. This is a trade that I really liked. Why Not offered me 2 very good rare cards for a super rare card that is also very good. This was a duplicate reward for me, and I did list him. So I was already interested here. Olsen and Bogarts was good enough. What I did, it says rejected, I sent a counter here. So my counter was to add Corbin Burns and then balance things out with Eats. I could tell he wanted the Santander, he wanted to go up, so Burns 0.05, 0.06, Olsen, so we're looking at 0.2 and then 0.25. Santander was going around, 0.2, and I made it 0.24 for a 0.25, where the difference in scarcities balanced out that extra little bit of ETH. I thought this was fair. I was very appreciative of Why Not for sending me a fair trade to begin with. I just wanted a little bit more, and I wanted to see if he had any interest in this type of deal. I was surprised he accepted it. I thought I might have been asking for a little too much, but he wanted the Anthony Santander card, and I gave him ETH, which ETH is always going to be worth a little extra on the street. So hopefully that insight gives you a little bit of an idea of what someone is looking for in a trade and what might make sense if you want a card. We actually had someone, AF7244, ask what he should trade a Dylan Carlson for. Let's take a look. So Dylan Carlson is worth $2 and $28 for his rare. So naturally here, if I'm looking at a $2 card, I am looking to trade him for something less. I don't think you should be looking to trade Dylan Carlson for a more expensive card, unless you're going to attach ETH to the trade. What I would do in this case is I would come to our rest of the season projections, I would find Dylan Carlson down here, and I would find somebody. If I'm looking, I'm still looking for an advantage here. I'm still looking for a trade that benefits me, so I'm looking to trade up here. But if I'm trying to get rid of a card, I'm going to find their price, which is right here, 0.002. So I'm looking for better players at that price to see if I can make a trade for them. So I already saw Luis Garcia. He projects better. I don't know if that's the right price because there are pitchers. Probably not going to find any 0.002s up here. Here's one, Jose Abreu. Older, had a rough season, still projects well. That could be something you could look for. Andrew Benintendi, same sort of thing. Really, I want to find someone who's better at a lesser price. I see a lot of 0.002s, so there are a lot of options. Contreras and Crawford and Profar and McCutcheon, all these guys. I don't think anyone's necessarily going to budge and make that deal. Here's one, Miles Straw. Miles Straw technically does project better than Dylan Carlson, and he is cheaper. I think you can make that trade. Trey Mancini, same sort of thing. I think there's a chance that someone accepts that trade, especially for a guy like Miles Straw, who doesn't hit a ton but can steal some bases. Those make a little bit of sense. Would I do it for Miles Straw? I don't know that I would. So when you ask this kind of question, like, who should I trade this guy for? I'm looking at their value and where I can improve but not insult the other owner. If you really want to trade him and get better value, you have to attach ETH to the trade. But I do not advocate going out and trying to rip people off or sending them junk trades. It's just going to get you, it's just going to result in a rejected trade or maybe a ban and someone dragging you on a video podcast or something like that. Just don't do it. Trading is a thin line. Like, I don't think anyone's calling up the Seattle Mariners and being like, I want Julio Rodriguez. I will give you 5 minor leaguers who their projected WAR next season in the majors equal what Julio Rodriguez would give you. If you look at it from like a real world perspective, if you take 5 players who WAR equals another player, who has more value? The group of 5 or the one player? Well, technically, they're equal. WAR is a value calculation, but spreading that WAR out over 5 positions takes away from the opportunity cost or adds to the opportunity cost, where if you plug a 5 WAR player in center field as opposed to 5 players who equal 5 WAR, 5 1 WAR players at 5 other positions, then you're missing out on the opportunity to plug, 4 1 WAR players and have 9 WAR in those 5 positions as opposed to 5, if that makes sense. That's why you shouldn't send those trades. They're bad. I hate them, and I curse the name of the people who do them. All right, I know I said I was going to touch on some players. I know I had a question about Michael Wacha, who I had said hold or sell before, and then I had a question about Randy Arozarena and Luis Roberts. I'm going to answer those tomorrow on the live show. I just kind of dove a little too deep into the trades, and I don't want to make this much longer than it needs to be. So I will circle back on that, guys. Pang and Gibran Martinez, I will circle back on your player questions, I promise. Check out the live show or the rerun of the live show from Friday, and I will definitely try and answer those questions for sure. If you have any more questions about trades, drop them in the comments, and that is how you enter the Rich Hill giveaway. Definitely make sure to do that. Just drop a comment. It doesn't have to be about trades, just anything in general about Sorare MLB, and that's how you enter. Before I get out of here, of course, the Patreon, patreon.com/SorareFP, $5 for projections, $10 for the year-long projections as well, the Discord, and that upcoming app, of course. I am going to get out of here. I will see you on Live Before Lock on Friday. Take care, and good luck to finish off this game week.